You know, for my first on-screen review, I wanted to do something positive. I've been really trying to do something positive. I was thinking of maybe looking at something like, the original Nicktoons, like Rugrats, or Hey Arnold, or maybe the cartoon lineup. Those are some of my favorite cartoons growing up. But recently, I finally got back into Family Guy, and something has become blatantly apparent to me. This show sucks. I don't know what happened, but this show has been ruined for me. When the show first came out, it was endearing and the characters were relatable. Now instead of slapstick, we get torture porn. Cutaways are being used constantly instead of developing story, and the grinding down of every single character into a single trait that is exploited for cheap laughs over and over and over. So with that, I dubbed the month of February Family Guy Month. And you know what, Brian? You're first on my list. Brian has become one of the most whiny, pretentious, overzealous characters I have ever seen in any show, animated or not. So you know what? I have the top 5 worst Brian episodes of Family Guy. Number 5. Excellence in broadcasting. In the beginning, Brian was the straight man. He was neutral on everything. They've thrown that completely out the window and made him a raving zealot, forcing atheism and far-left ideology on everyone and damning those that don't agree. In this episode, Brian meets Rush Limbaugh, a very famous right-wing radio host, and he's portrayed like a mild-mannered, intelligent man. Rush Limbaugh wants to introduce Brian to his way of thinking, so he gives him a copy of his book, and Brian reads it. Now, at first, I thought they were going to use this to fix Brian, make him see that you have to look at both sides of an argument to get a clear idea. It's just perspective. Nope, he's back to being a raving lunatic, except now he's on the far right. Now, usually when Brian has those rants, they're few and far between. Not a whole episode. This isn't endearing, this isn't fun. Even at the end of the episode with its so-called lesson, next week he's right back to where he was like the episode didn't happen. And man, I wish it didn't happen. Number 4. Scammed Yankees. As the seasons have gone by, Brian has become more of a sexual character, moving from looking for love and romance to banging everything in sight. This comes to a disgusting apex in this episode. So, Brian decides that his next sexual conquest is Meg's friend Patty, a high school girl. Now, Brian's age has been kept pretty ambiguous throughout the series. However, in this same season, they established that he is over 50 in dog years. Since the characters in the society of the show see him as a 56-year-old man, we as the viewer must see him as a 56-year-old man. So we get a 56-year-old man trying to bang a teenage girl. Are you seeing the problem here? Pretty sure I don't need to say anything else. Number 3. Tiegs for 2. Brian and Quagmire don't have the best relationship. Well, Quagmire hates Brian for many, many reasons. And most of these happen by accident, like Brian banging his dad or mistaking his niece for a boy. But this episode, this one is intentional, and he does the most loathsome thing he could have done to Quagmire. After getting angry at a pickup women class taught by Quagmire, Brian starts dating Cheryl Tiegs, the love of Quagmire's life, and the reason he is such a womanizer in the first place. He treats her like utter garbage, threatening to leave her if she's too slow, completely ignoring her at times, and making it abundantly clear that he's not even really interested in her. Not only does this make him an asshole, but it makes him an idiot too. Quagmire already hates him, so he thinks that treating his lost love like utter dirt is a good idea. Why not try to set the two back up and get Quagmire to like ya? Maybe then I could like ya. Number 2. Brian writes a bestseller. Honestly, the thing I hate most about Brian now is his ego. From fishing for compliments to full-on superiority complex, I can't stand it. This episode just lets it run rampant. After having the worst-selling book of all time, Brian decides to give up on writing. Then he finds out that the top-selling book in the country is a self-help book. After some persuasion from Stewie, he decides he wants to write one just to prove that they're crap. Brian's book becomes a bestseller, and it goes right to his head, turning him into the most self-centered, chauvinistic ass I have ever seen. Even though, according to his own feelings, self-help books are utter garbage. Now, he does get his comeuppance from one of his idols, Bill Maher, and humiliated on primetime television. But even after all of that, his ego is so massive, he can't even bring himself to actually apologize to the one person who deserves it the most, Stewie, his best friend and the only person who really puts up with this shit. While I originally wrote this episode, this was going to be my top pick, because this episode just disgusts me. But then I kept watching, and then I found something worse. Far, far worse. Number 1. Brian is a bad father. Now, my other choices could be defended from certain points of view. Brian dated Cheryl Tiegs to get back at Quagmire for being an ass. In some places, it's not illegal to date a 16-year-old. But this one is indefensible. Brian's son, the one that became a running joke about Brian being a horrible father, has become the star of a new Disney Channel show. Brian is reluctant to see him until he finds out that his son is on TV. Then all of a sudden, he's super interested in his son's life. Brian then convinces his son to pull some strings and make him a writer on the show, where he then alienates himself and starts misdirecting his actors like he's in charge. Not to mention that he keeps stealing things. Dating a friend's ex and being a raving zealot may make you unlikable. But using your estranged child to further your own ends with no consideration for his or his coworkers' feelings? That's just sick. I'm only one episode into this month and I already hate my life. Well, that's the first episode of Family Guy month. I'll have another video out soon if my brain doesn't explode. And Brian, fuck you.